Hello, my friends. Welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and today I'm sharing my experiences from catching the mighty Iron Maiden, legendary heavy metal gods, the mighty Iron Maiden, kings of the new wave of British heavy metal and all round heavy metal titans. Caught them on their Run for Your Lives 2025 World Tour at the Birmingham Utilita Arena on Saturday, 21st of June 2025, as I say. So, in fact, on the solstice, the summer solstice. And my goodness, what an evening that was. So, it is the Run for Your Lives World Tour. And if you've been living under a rock, if you have managed to not hear about it so far, then essentially it is a tour centered around the first 9 albums of the band, or so it was tagged, from the self-titled debut album all the way up to Fear of the Dark, the ninth album. Now, Iron Maiden have a lot of albums. They've got a lot of material to draw from. And they're also a band that is very regularly on the road. They are a very active band. You know, in the last few years, we've had the Days of Future Past tour. We've had various Legacy of the Beast tours. Before that, we had the Book of Souls tour. We've had tour after tour after tour. They're a very active band. But for me, the last time I saw Iron Maiden was prior to Saturday night in Birmingham, was actually on the Maiden England run, headlining the Sonosphere Festival. And I can't even remember what year that was. I think it was 2013, 14, something like that. So it's actually been a long time. Unfortunately, over the years, the universe has been conspiring against me because I've always managed to for whatever reason, not be able to attend, not be able to catch the mighty Iron Maiden, who, for me, they are one of my all-time favourite bands. Every metalhead has a soft spot for Iron Maiden, of course they do, and rightfully so. They are an amazing band, one of my favourites, one of many metalheads' favourite bands, certainly one of my top 5. So I was not gonna miss this one. I was not gonna miss it. Not when, it's all the early years right up to, I guess, before Bruce Dickinson left the band, that kind of rocky period. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. And I made a point. I was straight onto it with hotels, straight onto it with booking the tickets. Was determined to catch them at the Utilita. For me, that is a great venue. One of the best. I try to avoid London as much as possible just because cost and logistics, but I was not going to miss out on this one. And I also made a very concerted effort to not read any reviews, not hear any reviews or any spoilers about the set list, or even click on any posts or reviews or anything, because I didn't want to see the aesthetics. I wanted it to be a complete surprise as much as possible. And of course, the band, vocally and management, vocally did not want lots of photographs and recordings and dodgy videos. And I think that's a good approach. I happened to also catch Ghost on tour earlier this year in April at the same venue. And that was fantastic because it was a no phones event. You didn't have some drunken fool waving his camera in front of you, obscuring your view. You didn't have any of that. It was just you, the crowd, the band. Perfect. And actually, I did notice that a lot less people had their phone out all the time. There were a few determined to show their mates some grainy, poor footage, but unfortunately, because of people like that and uploading it to YouTube, I was aware of a couple of the tracks that were going to feature. But hey, I also did see a few sort of rumblings and posts about people being dissatisfied with the set list. And I think that's a very interesting idea because it's Iron Maiden. They're a big band. It wasn't exactly dirt cheap to see them. It was pretty reasonable. Then they're very unlikely going to give you some random cover or some random obscure demo track that never made an album. They're not going to give you that. that it's always going to be a greatest hits to an extent, because every Maiden fan probably knows every album inside and out. So pulling a deep dive is quite difficult. I should imagine trying to find a deep cut is a little bit challenging, but they did still accomplish that. They pulled some tracks that they haven't played for a very long time, and it was freaking great. It was all the classics and more. So, great venue, great band, of course, but the one slight fly in the ointment was the unbelievable heat. It was about 30, 31 degrees here in the UK on that particular date. And my goodness, I don't think I've ever sweat so much in my life. You know, going to a gig, you expect to be sweaty and it to be hot, but this was ridiculous. I was absolutely saturated, and everyone was, and it was a little bit of a struggle, but that's not the band's fault, of course. And Bruce himself was making light of it, saying feels a bit cold in here, and he was clearly, the band were absolutely drenched as well, so you felt a little bit better about it. But you've got those conditions, everyone was still having a great time regardless. I still had a great time regardless. So the show then, we had support from the Raven Age, who did well, but of course it was all about Maiden. It was always just going to be all about Maiden, and rightfully so. So obviously it's been quite a while since I've caught Maiden live, and I must say the whole stage setup and technicalities and the visuals has come along a hell of a long way over the years. I was absolutely blown away. Long gone are the days of changing the curtain multiple times or the backdrop multiple times and bringing different props on. It's all screens now, like it or not, it's all screens. And what was really cool is that Maiden came on to, or introduced the set with the Ides of March, of course, the opening intro from the second album, Killers, legendary album that is. They had the Ides of March in the background, and it was like a visual tour of the old stomping grounds of Iron Maiden, the pubs that they used to visit, in this kind of awesome animation, ending at the Cart and Horses. And that was a great way to start things off before launching into a succession of three further tracks, all from Killer's album. And I was really, really surprised by that. Obviously, I was expecting some Killers material, definitely, because it seems to be an album that's been getting a lot more love and a lot more attention over the last few years. Obviously, the late Paul Di'Anno passed away earlier on this year, I believe, 2025. You know, very sad, very, very tragic. Or 2024, I can't quite recall. But you know, he was a really important figure in the development of Maiden. Obviously, he was there, vocals for the first two albums, and those are two crucial albums in the development of heavy metal and the new wave of British heavy metal. So they launched into Murders in the Rue Morgue, which was great, and you had the visuals of an overview of the city of Paris, of course, and that was great. The band was electric from the off. It was just pure energy, and the whole time, the whole crowd were ecstatic. It was, despite the heat, it was intense. It was electrifying in there. And Bruce, obviously tearing around the place in his leather jacket, he must have been absolutely roasting. So you had an absolute classic there, bit of a deeper dive, I would say, before launching into Wrathchild, which is just a fantastic song. It's an absolute classic. Love that song to bits. That legendary intro bass line there from Steve, and those screeching, wailing guitars. It's just a beautiful, beautiful track, and a delightful one to hear. Don't think I've ever seen Maiden play that track live before. Obviously, it does feature in their live albums and live sets over the years, but that was a killer, no pun intended, before the title track Killers, which was really stunning, absolutely fantastic. I've never obviously seen them play that one either, so it was a delightful start to the set, absolutely fantastic. They were just on it. It was just pure energy. The whole band was active and electric. You forget maybe don't forget, but you don't really fully appreciate until you see Iron Maiden live just how freaking good they are as musicians. Yannick Gears, I should say, Adrian Smith, and Dave Murray, just absolutely masters of the fret. It looks effortless for them. And of course, you've got Steve with his thunderous rumbling bass, which is just awesome. His right hand just absolutely like a blur on the strings there. And you know what? There was a lot of speculation about how it was going to be with Simon Dawson sitting in the drum throne there, filling in for Nico McBrain, the legendary. And you know what? He was fantastic. You could tell he was enjoying himself. You could tell it was hard work, but Dawson did an absolute stellar job. He was great, absolutely brilliant. And of course, the enigmatic Duracell powered Bruce Dickinson, the air raid siren himself, charging around. I thought he sounded amazing. He is a legend. He is so freaking energetic, captivating to watch. Amazing. He sounded absolutely brilliant. It was an absolute delight. And I don't know, I've read some things over the years, people taking pot shots at Bruce. He can't sing anymore. He doesn't sound like he did. He's 66. He sounds a lot better than a lot of 66-year-olds would, but he also has aged. He's not going to sound like he did 40 years ago, but he still sounded absolutely brilliant. And those tracks are obviously from albums that weren't originally his. Paul Di'Anno's vocals there, but he pulled it off like a pro. And he's used to it by now, of course, but it was absolutely seemingly effortless. Then we had another absolute treat. We had Phantom of the Opera from the debut self-titled album. Great track. That was an absolute delight. We had amazing visuals where it looked like an old theatre. Bruce very elegantly introduced that track. And that was a real treat. I can't say that I've ever heard that one or seen that one live in person. Absolutely stunning though. It's such a catchy track. Absolutely love that one. So that was a real treat. And then, what was really cool is that they mixed things up a little bit. The title track from Number of the Beast. Normally, certainly in the experience of myself and the times that I've seen Maiden, normally that seems to feature towards the end or in the encore. But actually, early on, we hear that legendary intro and then the galloping riffs, the thunderous bass. Bruce sounded amazing. I was really, really impressed with just how great he sounded. And that sounded fantastic. The Number of the Beast, the whole crowd just chanting, going mad. I'm pretty sure I had goosebumps. It was so freaking good. Great one to hear. And obviously they were following that succession. First two albums, third album in there. And then they just discarded that and went straight in with the Clairvoyant. From Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, the legendary seventh album. And that was amazing. The visuals were glorious. It was absolutely incredible to see. Loved that, every second of that. Such a great song. And actually, for me, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son has grown on me massively over the years. I used to really, enjoy it, but not fully appreciate just how brilliant it is as a concept album and just as a really well constructed, monstrously good album. So that was an absolute treat, of course. Then we get a few more sort of set staples. We have The Trooper. Of course, Iron Maiden cannot play without playing The Trooper. It is one of their best songs, one of their most well known, and my goodness, they absolutely pulled it off. Bruce Dickinson charging around like an absolute battery powered ball of energy. He was just insane and sounded brilliant. It was absolutely stunning. The Trooper, I could listen to that song any day and absolutely adore it. But I am jumping ahead a little bit there because that did follow a little bit later. What we had after the Clairvoyant was a track that I really adore. Again, I've never seen it played live and I was really hoping for this one. The title track from one of my absolute favourite Maiden albums, Powerslave. Glorious. It was absolutely amazing. I was not really expecting it. I had hopes. I really did have hopes for that one. and it sounded incredible. And Bruce, with his very interesting headpiece sort of mask on there, charging around. We've got the album cover artwork on the screens. Looks like the tombs, the sarcophagi, and all that going on there, and it was stunning. Again, I had chills. It was, and sweat. It was so freaking good, and that is such a great track. Absolutely marvelous. And that wasn't the only track from Powerslave. We actually had a lot of representation from Powerslave. We had 2 Minutes to Midnight, a masterpiece of a track, very oddly relevant at this strange time to be alive on planet Earth. 2 Minutes to Midnight with the amazing visuals on the screen there as well. That artwork from the single projected on the backdrop there, absolutely brilliant. One of the catchiest and most sort of heavy metal sounding Iron Maiden songs in their very impressive arsenal, of course. Absolutely incredible. We then had, and I was really not expecting this, the full grandeur of Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now, I was not expecting that, I must admit. Never seen that one before, but they played it and it was glorious. And, you know, Bruce, in his very enigmatic way, was introducing that. Water, not a drop to drink. It was incredible. It was absolutely brilliant. And it felt like just a perfect moment. It was freaking brilliant. The visuals there were insane, and it was so creepy as well. Obviously, if you're familiar with Rime of the Ancient Mariner, it's the curse after killing the albatross. And you had all of that going on in the visuals, these horrible skeletal faces. It really was actually quite disconcerting. But it was glorious. Absolutely blew my freaking mind. Loved that, every second of it. That one's an epic, of course. But we did also have another epic in there as well. And I really was not expecting it, considering that they aired this one quite a bit for a few years on the Made in England set. The title track, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, which is amazing. It's an absolute gem. Freaking love that one to bits. And again, I was just not expecting that. It was so good, so well performed. It was just perfect. I loved the atmosphere of that very kind of synths, very 80s sounding track. That absolutely glorious. So you had 2 epic length tracks, and my God, yeah, the visuals were there. It was stunning. Bruce, fine form, sounded absolutely fantastic in his very sort of theatric delivery. Absolutely stunning. And the boys were just on fire. Absolute insane. That blinding re-entry riff that we get after that kind of middle pause, low, sort of slowed down bit in the middle of the track there. It was just absolutely amazing. Grand. Then we did have some more fan favourites, of course. We had Run to the Hills, which was absolutely brilliant. I think that's a pretty safe option for Maiden to bust out Run to the Hills. That's always going to be a bit of a winner, and went down an absolute treat, of course. Before closing out the main set with Hallowed Be Thy Name, and of course the self-titled Iron Maiden. Hallowed Be Thy Name is one of the best Iron Maiden songs. It's one of the best heavy metal songs ever. I absolutely adore that, and the whole aesthetics and everything with that was just incredible. So Bruce was in his cell on this sort of back to the I guess to the left if you're looking at the stage, very solemn, looking the part. Not necessarily the main focus there, of course. You know, he sounded incredible. He's still got power, so much power there. He still is an absolute air raid siren. But it was just the lineup there. Just those expert pro musicians just delivering. And it was mesmerizing. Proper jaw-dropping stuff. They just nailed it. And I love that song beyond what I can possibly explain in words. And they did it absolute justice. And there was very cool visuals, as I say. It was very interesting. Just a total spectacle. Very theatric, very entertaining stuff indeed. And they did that song absolute justice. Then, as I say, with the title track, the self-titled Iron Maiden track, it's not a favourite Iron Maiden song of mine, but it is, of course, a classic. And it was great. This huge Eddie projection on the back there, an interesting kind of nod to Peace of Mind as well, with the cell and the chained, shackled Eddie. But you know what? They did it really good, and it was a great track. It's a great heavy metal number, a new album number, but it's just not one of my favourite Iron Maiden songs, fair to say. But that whole set was just mind-blowing. Absolutely incredible stuff. Freaking loved every moment of that. But of course, then there was a hiatus. A brief pause before an encore. Of course, they're always going to do an encore. It is Iron Maiden, and it's just the established thing to do. And of course, certain tracks they will need to play live because they're just such staples and fan favourites. One of which is Aces High, the opening track from the mighty Powerslave, that crucial fifth album, and it was amazing. Not just because of the movie, the epic movie of Eddie in his Spitfire taking down a Heinkel 111 and Messerschmitts, but just the sheer energy and power. Bruce charging around with his aviator hat and goggles, the band, Adrian, Dave and Yannick just riffing, Steve with his rumbling tones there, Simon absolutely killing it. It was glorious. Another one of my personal favourite Maiden tracks, and my God, they did that, and they did that in style. Then, and very fitting for the solstice, the giant full moon comes up on the screens. Bruce in his full sort of long trench coat looking thing with his lantern comes out for Fear of the Dark, a very folky, very catchy, very memorable fan favourite. It's a everyone's sing along moment, and everyone was singing along because it was just excellent, absolutely stunning. A great track. They did really, really well with that one. It was just amazing, reliable, safe option for Maiden. And I kind of suspected that would be it. I didn't think that after Fear of the Dark they'd play anything else, but they did. They delivered Wasted Years from Somewhere in Time. Absolutely amazing. I was really impressed by that. I really was not expecting them to air anything from Somewhere in Time, which I absolutely adore that album to bits. But of course, it's been given a lot of play over recent years on the Days of Future Past tour, where they've been celebrating Senjutsu and Somewhere in Time. So I wasn't really expecting that at all, but that was a great addition. Love that kind of vocal duet that we have with Adrian Smith as well, and some incredible guitar work, just blinding. They're such pros, such absolute experts. And that sadly brought a brilliant show to a close, but on a high. You know, there was not a sad face in the crowd. There was a lot of shiny, sweaty faces, obviously, but Iron Maiden were incredible. And of course, they are. And they just delivered like absolute experts, considering they're all well into their 60s, approaching 70. You know, they delivered with energy that I don't think I have. They were just incredible. Absolutely brilliant. Start to finish, there wasn't a moment that they appeared to be struggling or disinterested. They clearly were just in their element, just loving every second of it. And it really felt like that. It felt like a really intimate show, considering it's in such a massive venue. The visuals were there. The set list was stunning. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about the set list, and it's pretty obvious. They did completely neglect No Prayer for the Dying, which I'm not at all surprised about, because it's not a terrible album by any means, but it's just not one of their best moments. So that's kind of to be expected. If I could have chosen an album that they could have revisited a bit more, it probably would have been Peace of Mind. Again, I didn't expect much, if anything, from Somewhere in Time, but some more tracks like maybe Where Eagles Dare or Flight of Icarus, Revelations, Die With Your Boots On, that would have been great stuff. But you know what? I'm absolutely content, because that was a brilliant show, brilliant set. Loved every single second of it. And I would go and see Maiden again. That was my 6th time, but I'd go and see them again in a heartbeat. If you do get a chance to catch them on this run, or if you are going, you're in for an absolute treat. So it does say here 2025 Run for Your Lives tour. However, it did say on the screens there 2025 to 2026. So I strongly suspect that this tour will be back. They'll probably be headlining Download Festival next year, because that is just the cycle. That seems to be what they do. But there always then is the issue. Do you get the merch? And actually, on this occasion, I did. So I did pick up a tour shirt for this one, because it's such an important thing seeing Maiden for me, that I really didn't want to miss out. And it was not cheap. You know, standard tour shirt is £45. But I think, you know, it's such an opportunity to actually get a really cool personal piece of merch, you know, and they're really high quality, actually. I went for this one. They had loads of different ones available, but obviously based on the Infinite Dreams art from Seventh Son of a Seventh Sons. You've got Eddie on his motorbike, holding his Union flag, breaking through a wall that's in the shape of the UK. So really cool. And then on the back we have the established 1975 Run for Your Lives World Tour 2025 with the just the UK dates there on the bottom. So yeah, I did push the boat out. Did take a little bit of convincing actually from the missus, but yep, lovely t-shirt there. Great quality, great design. And actually, I did also pick up the little pack of patches. So you get 5 patches in a pack, and it was 15 quid. But you know what? Again, really cool. And main reason, I really wanted a tour patch for this one to add to the jacket. So yep, got the Run for Your Lives patch there. You also get a Run for Your Lives little kind of title patch there. Interestingly, you get a Aces High art patch as well, which is really cool. An established 75 Iron Maiden logo patch, and a 50 Eddie patch. So really cool. Tons of cool merch there as well. And you know what? This is just the world we live in now. It's more expensive. Yeah, so what? You know, it's Iron Maiden. It's awesome. I like it. So, hey, overall, I'd say it was a 10 out of 10 show. It was absolutely stunning, absolutely amazing. They just delivered the goods, and it just was stunning, absolutely spectacular. The visuals, the performance, the track, set list, the whole thing was just there. 10 out of 10. So, my friends, thank you for watching this humble review. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Were you there also, or are you going to go and catch Iron Maiden on the Run for Your Lives tour? Let me know what your thoughts are on this one, or how you're feeling about catching them. Very interested to hear thoughts and opinions of others, as always. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the humble review. As I say, do feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Support is very much appreciated. Check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. Until next time, do take care of yourselves, support Iron Maiden, up the irons, and stay freaking heavy.